Depending on what's happening in students' lives, I get the question of what qualification students should study all the time. And it's an interesting question because the first question is, what do you mean by better? uh, do you mean better? Most cases, when students say I want the best qualification, they're talking about guaranteed employment. Which qualification is more likely to guarantee me employment for the rest of my life, to guarantee me a successful career or a good salary. And that's a tricky one because I don't think anybody can guarantee, nobody can guarantee anything in today's society. So, the guarantee is tricky. It also very much depends on who you are, your interests, your abilities, your strengths, your weaknesses. I can't tell you that. You need to assess what that is. And one of the things you need to do is take a serious look at the skills that are required in different qualifications and whether or not you have those skills or are prepared to put the yards in order to get those skills, which is very difficult. So for two reasons, or for these two reasons at the very least, it's extremely difficult for me to give advice to students about what qualification they should get. The stuff that I generally tell them to consider is starting with a career and working their way backwards. The qualification is the piece of paper and is the title that may get you in the door. But the question is, what do you actually want to be doing with that qualification? What job do you want to do? Because remember, your career is what you actually do on a daily basis. When you go into the office or work from home or whatever, whatever you're going to do, what does that look like for you? What do you want that to look like? Your career is going to be what you actually do. So in order to pick a qualification, it makes sense to start off by going, what do I actually want to do? And then work your way backwards. Because there is a possibility that you may pick a qualification and then realize that that's not actually what you want to do on a daily basis. And if that is the case, then, do you have the strength and the guts to change that qualification if you get to a point where you realize actually this isn't for you for whatever reason? You've been exposed to something that you weren't before, and you realize that you have a massive passion for something else, whatever the case is. Have you actually asked what you want to do? The qualification is a title, but it is not what you're actually going to do on a daily basis. A certified accountant is a qualification. A chartered accountant is a qualification. A management accountant is a qualification. They are qualified, but qualified for what? Qualified for certain careers and certain career paths and certain jobs. And what those jobs actually look like, that's what they're going to be doing on a daily basis. So if you want to know what qualification to study, start off by asking, what is it that I actually want to do? What job do I want? What career do I want? And which qualification is more likely to get me there? Be very careful about trying to choose a qualification that guarantees you employment, because having guaranteed employment is not really what kicks you out of bed on a Monday morning with enthusiasm to do your thing. And the reality is, when we look at what's going on in society, massive companies, scandals, the ethics issues and a lot of qualifications and a lot of issues, guarantees like bets are off. The bets are off. I would never guarantee anyone that if they have a certain piece of paper, they will get employment. We've seen people who don't have qualifications do amazing things, and people who do have qualifications do nothing with them. So it's a tricky one. So when students ask me, what qualification should I get, or should I get this qualification, I want to challenge you to start by asking what career, what do you want to do? What do you picture yourself doing? And work your way backwards. And the question as well is, does that thing need a qualification? Especially as you start, does that thing need a qualification for you to begin with? Because, there's also something to be said for working with something and being exposed to something and then picking a qualification on the basis of, wow, I've actually done that and I quite like it. I've actually worked with it and I quite enjoy it. Do you know how many students I know that came straight out of school and went to study accounting and finance because that's what their parents said was going to guarantee them employment, or because they really didn't know what else to do and they were okay with numbers, accounting seemed like a good career. Very doesn't often end up, being a very happily ever after story, because when they're exposed to something they're really passionate about, that's where they head up. And, if they're exposed to something and they really dislike it, then you'll end up being miserable for a very long time. So yeah, start by asking yourself what career, what is out there that you're really passionate about, that you really want to do, and work your way backwards to a qualification. Once you've answered that question, once you've gone backwards, then start looking at what types of qualifications there are, what the market looks like, etc., etc. But I want to challenge you to start by thinking of the career rather than trying to gather qualifications, collect qualifications and then sort of say, okay, well, now I've got all these qualifications, I've got all these numbers and letters behind my name. What can I do with them?